May 14, 2011, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada began as an ordinary Saturday for 6-year-old Meika Jordan. No one could have predicted that this day would be the last in her short life. Meika lived in a 2-story house in northeast Calgary with her mother Marie Magoon, stepfather Spencer Jordan, and younger brother. The day proceeded without incident until around 6 p.m. when a call came into the 911 emergency service. An agitated male voice, belonging to Spencer Jordan, informed the dispatcher that his stepdaughter had lost consciousness after falling down the stairs. He claimed that the girl had fallen while playing on the stairs in the house and was now unresponsive to external stimuli. Paramedics arrived at the scene within minutes. They found Meika in critical condition, unconscious, having difficulty breathing, and with multiple visible injuries on her body. Despite the emergency aid provided on site, the girl's condition remained critical. Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon explained to the paramedics that Meika had been injured accidentally by falling down the stairs in the house. According to them, they heard a noise, and when they approached, they found the girl unconscious at the bottom of the stairs. Marie Magoon kept her distance, appeared confused, and repeatedly mentioned the staircase fall story when asked about what happened. Meika was immediately transported to the Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary. During transport, paramedics noticed that the nature of the girl's injuries raised serious questions about their origin. Multiple bruises of varying ages, burns, and other signs of trauma were found on the child's body that seemed incompatible with a typical fall downstairs. At the hospital, emergency doctors began intensive resuscitation efforts. During the initial examination, medical staff noted numerous injuries covering a significant portion of Meika's body from head to toe. The nature, location, and age of these injuries immediately aroused suspicions among the medical personnel. Calgary police were notified about the admission of a child with suspicious injuries, and officers were dispatched both to the hospital and the family's residence. Access to the home was restricted to the investigation team only, and evidence collection began. Despite all efforts by the medical team, Meika's condition continued to deteriorate. The internal injuries proved too extensive and serious. At 9:43 p.m. that same day, May 14, 2011, medical staff officially pronounced Meika Jordan dead. From the moment Meika was admitted to the hospital, medical staff experienced growing concern about the nature of her injuries. The emergency department physician on duty, Dr. Elaine Peterson, was the first to express doubts about the accidental fall down the stairs narrative. Her experience suggested that such injuries could not have resulted from a single accident. The basis for these suspicions included the following observations. Meika's body had bruises and hematomas of varying ages, from fresh ones to those that were several weeks old. Particularly alarming were multiple round burns, resembling cigarette marks found on the girl's arms and legs. Evidence of strikes with a hard object was also identified on the child's back and buttocks. Dr. Peterson immediately notified the hospital's senior pediatrician, Dr. James Little, who, after examining the child, agreed with suspicions of possible abuse. The doctors also noted signs of malnutrition. Meika weighed significantly less than normal for her age. Police officers who arrived at the hospital conducted initial questioning of Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon. Detective Thomas Nelson, the lead officer from the Violent Crimes Investigation Unit, noticed that the girl's parents exhibited strange behavior. Marie was withdrawn and uncommunicative, allowing Spencer to answer most questions. Jordan, in turn, frequently changed details of the fall story, first claiming that Meika fell while walking down the stairs, then saying she fell while trying to slide down the banister. Their explanations did not match the nature of the injuries, Detective Nelson later noted in his report. Additionally, inconsistencies in their stories raised serious doubts about the credibility of the information provided. While medical staff fought for Meika's life, another group of police officers arrived at the family's home to inspect the scene. Officers discovered that the staircase in the house had a protective barrier that made an accidental fall unlikely. Furthermore, a soft carpet was found on the lower steps of the staircase, which should have cushioned any possible fall. During further inspection of the house, investigators discovered several disturbing details. Meika's bedroom contained a minimal amount of personal belongings and lacked toys typical for a child her age. Clothing with bloodstains was found in the closet and was collected for further examination. The bathroom drew particular attention, where blood traces were found on towels and in the bathtub drain. In the kitchen, police noticed an unusual system of locks on the refrigerator and food cabinets, which could indicate restriction of the child's access to food. After Meika's death was confirmed, the Calgary Police Investigation Team officially classified the case as a suspected homicide. The girl's body was sent to the Chief Medical Examiner's office for a complete autopsy. The autopsy of Meika Jordan's body was conducted by Alberta's Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Elizabeth Roberts, on May 16, 2011. The results of this procedure shocked even experienced pathologists and investigators working on the case. Dr. Roberts indicated in her official report that more than 70 separate injuries were found on the 6-year-old girl's body. Meika Jordan died from a combination of multiple traumatic injuries sustained as a result of blunt force trauma, inconsistent with an accidental fall, Dr. Roberts concluded. The nature and extent of the injuries indicate systematic abuse over an extended period of time. The medical examiner paid special attention to the mesentery damage, a rare injury that typically occurs with a powerful blow to the abdomen or in car accidents. According to Dr. Roberts, such an injury could only have resulted from a strong and deliberate blow to the abdominal area. Temporal analysis of the injuries showed that some were received hours before death, while others were days or weeks old. This indicated that violence against the child occurred systematically and over an extended period. Toxicological testing revealed no traces of medications or toxic substances in Meika's system, which ruled out accidental poisoning or drug overdose. Additional evidence of prolonged abuse came from radiological examination results, which revealed Harris lines on the long bones, a sign of bone growth arrest often observed in children experiencing chronic stress and malnutrition. Analysis of stomach contents showed that Meika's last meal was minimal and occurred more than 12 hours before her death, indicating possible food deprivation. Dr. Adam Clark, a pediatric trauma specialist brought in as an expert on the case, noted, "The injuries discovered in Meika Jordan are absolutely incompatible with the staircase fall version. Even a fall from a significant height could not have resulted in such a combination of injuries. We are dealing with the result of deliberate and prolonged violence." Based on medical evidence, the cause of Meika Jordan's death was officially determined as homicide resulting from multiple traumatic injuries. The medical examiner's conclusion became key evidence refuting the accident version and served as the basis for reclassifying the investigation as homicide. After receiving the autopsy results, Calgary police intensified their investigation. The case was transferred to the Homicide Investigation Department under Detective Sergeant Michael Carter. On May 18, 2011, Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon were invited to the police station to provide formal statements. During a 6-hour interrogation of Spencer Jordan, investigators noted numerous inconsistencies in his story. Initially, he insisted on the version of Meika falling down the stairs, but when presented with medical evidence contradicting this version, Jordan changed his testimony. "Perhaps she fell several times over the past few weeks. Children often fall and get hurt," he stated, trying to explain the multiple injuries of varying ages on the girl's body. When investigators asked about the origin of burns resembling cigarette marks, Jordan suggested that Meika might have accidentally leaned against an electric stove. However, forensic experts had already established that such burns could not have resulted from contact with a stove, given their shape and location. When questioned about the abdominal injury that directly caused death, Jordan first denied any knowledge of it, then suggested that Meika might have hit the corner of a table. When shown photographs from the home where there were no tables with sharp corners at the height of the child's abdomen, he remained silent for several minutes, then asked for a lawyer. Parallel to Jordan's interrogation, Detective Lisa Monroe was interviewing Marie Magoon in another room. Meika's mother appeared depressed and often gave one-word answers. When asked if she had ever seen Spencer harm her daughter, Magoon evasively replied, "He's strict but fair. Children need to know discipline." When Detective Monroe showed Marie photographs of Meika's injuries taken at the hospital, she turned away and began crying. After a prolonged pause, she admitted that in recent months she had noticed bruises on her daughter's body, but explained them as the result of active play and falls. "She's a clumsy girl. Always has been," Magoon insisted, despite the fact that Meika's teachers described her as a coordinated and active child. During further investigation, detectives discovered that Spencer and Marie's testimonies regarding the events of May 14th differed significantly in details. Marie claimed that at the time of Meika's alleged fall, she was in the kitchen, while Spencer stated they were both in the living room. Marie said she immediately called 911. However, records showed that the call was made by Spencer more than an hour after the alleged incident. Analysis of phone conversations between Spencer and Marie on the day of the incident revealed a series of short calls exchanged between them in the period between Meika's supposed fall time and the emergency call. This led investigators to suspect a possible conspiracy to create a unified version of events. A turning point in the investigation came from examining the family's digital devices. On a computer seized from the home, search queries made several days before Meika's death were discovered. Internal bleeding symptoms. Child can't walk after being hit. How long bruise remains visible? These searches were made from an account belonging to Spencer Jordan. As the investigation deepened, detectives uncovered a disturbing pattern of systematic abuse of Meika Jordan. Interviews with neighbors, teachers, and family members revealed details that had previously gone unnoticed or ignored. Carol Peterson, a neighbor of the family, told police that she had heard screams and crying coming from the Jordans' home several times, especially on weekends. "I often heard a male voice shouting at a child. Sometimes the screams were so loud that I thought about calling the police, but I didn't want to interfere in someone else's family matters," she admitted to investigators with evident guilt. Meika's teacher at Riverside Elementary School, Sandra Miller, shared her observations. In the months before her death, Meika became withdrawn and fearful. She would flinch at loud noises and avoid physical contact. "Several times I noticed bruises on her arms, and once I asked her about them. She said she fell off her bicycle, but I wasn't convinced by this explanation." Ms. Miller also noted that Meika often came to school hungry and sometimes asked for extra portions at lunch. The teacher had tried to discuss this with Marie Magoon at parent-teacher conferences several times, but she always assured her that the girl was fine and was just going through a picky phase. Additional testimony came from a former neighbor, David Wright, who had lived next to them until they moved 6 months before Meika's death. "Spencer had an intimidating character. I saw him handle Meika roughly, grabbing her arm so hard that she cried. Once I said something to him about it, and he replied that I shouldn't tell him how to raise his children." Particularly troubling was the testimony from Meika's grandmother, Marie Magoon's mother. Elizabeth Magoon reported that in recent months, her daughter and son-in-law had increasingly prevented her from seeing her granddaughter. "When I asked why Meika wasn't coming to visit, Marie always found excuses. And when I did see Meika, she seemed intimidated. The last time I saw her, about a month before her death, she was wearing long sleeves and pants despite the warm weather. Now I understand they were probably hiding bruises." Analysis of Meika's medical records revealed a disturbing trend. In the year before her death, the girl had visited the emergency room 3 times with various injuries. A broken wrist, explained as a fall from a swing, a concussion, supposedly from hitting a door, and a burned hand, according to Marie, accidentally spilling hot soup on herself. None of these incidents raised sufficient suspicion among medical staff to report to Child Protective Services. However, the most shocking testimony came from the 11-year-old daughter of neighbors, Emma Thompson, who occasionally played with Meika. "Meika told me that her dad, Spencer, locks her in a closet if she misbehaves. She showed me bruises on her back and said they were from a belt. I didn't know what to do with this information. I thought maybe she was exaggerating." By May 25, 2011, the investigation team had gathered enough evidence to conclude that Meika Jordan had been subjected to systematic abuse by Spencer Jordan with the silent consent or passive participation of her mother, Marie Magoon. To better understand the circumstances leading to the tragedy, investigators turned to studying Meika's life from birth. Meika Emily Jordan was born on February 1, 2005 in Edmonton, Alberta. Her mother, Marie Magoon, was a 19-year-old college student at the time. The biological father, Brian Johnson, had left Marie before their daughter's birth. Meika spent her first 3 years with her mother and grandmother in Edmonton. According to Elizabeth Magoon, despite her youth, Marie was a caring mother who did everything possible for her daughter's well-being. Meika was a happy, healthy child. Marie tried very hard, although it was difficult for her to balance school, work, and raising a child. In 2008, Marie met Spencer Jordan, who worked as a construction worker. The relationship developed quickly, and after 6 months, Spencer moved in with Marie and 3-year-old Meika. Soon after, the family relocated to Calgary, where Spencer was offered permanent employment. Elizabeth Magoon noted that initially, Spencer seemed to be a positive influence in her daughter and granddaughter's lives. He was charming, had a stable income, and seemed to genuinely care for Meika. But after they moved to Calgary, I began to notice changes. Marie became more distant, and Meika became less talkative during our phone conversations. In 2009, Marie and Spencer had a son. By all accounts, Spencer treated his own child with much more tenderness and patience than he did Meika. Neighbors and family acquaintances noted this difference in treatment. Meika began attending Riverside Elementary School in 2010. Her first teacher, Mrs. Grant, described Meika as a bright, curious girl with a vivid imagination. However, by early 2011, teachers noticed changes in the child's behavior. The physical education teacher noted that Meika began refusing to participate in games requiring changing into sports clothes, and often complained of stomach or headaches to avoid activities. The school psychologist, Dr. Alan Berger, had 2 conversations with Meika in March 2011, after teachers expressed concern about her withdrawal and declining academic performance. In his notes, he indicated that the girl showed signs of anxiety and possible depression, but did not identify specific indications of domestic violence. Meika was secretive about her home life. When I asked about family relationships, she gave evasive answers or changed the subject, he wrote in his conclusion. 2 weeks before Meika's death, the school nurse, Mrs. Hope, noticed a bruise on the girl's neck and asked about its origin. Meika said she was punished for spilling juice. The nurse made a note of this incident, but took no further action, considering the explanation, though troubling, insufficient for an official report to Child Protective Services. The last photograph of Meika, taken at a school event on May 5, 2011, shows a thin, pale girl with a forced smile, a stark contrast to the cheerful, energetic girl in photographs from a year earlier. On May 27, 2011, after 2 weeks of intensive investigation, Calgary police issued arrest warrants for Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon. Spencer was charged with first-degree murder, and Marie with second-degree murder. Both were also charged with child abuse. The arrest was conducted early morning at the suspect's home. The police report notes that Spencer showed aggression during detention, while Marie appeared detached and emotionally disconnected. At the first court hearing, held on May 30th, both defendants were denied bail due to the severity of the charges and potential danger to society. Meika's younger brother was placed in temporary custody of Child Protective Services and then with his grandmother, Elizabeth Magoon. Spencer Jordan hired prominent criminal defense attorney James Richardson, who specialized in murder cases. Marie Magoon was represented by public defender Sarah Goldstein. The prosecution was led by experienced prosecutor Thomas Finch. After the charges were filed, the Calgary public was shocked by the investigation details gradually leaking to the press. People established a memorial of flowers, candles, and stuffed toys in front of the house where Meika had lived. Hundreds attended the girl's funeral, held on June 3, 2011, including her teachers, classmates, and many strangers touched by this tragedy. Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon were held in separate pretrial detention facilities. According to prison reports, Spencer repeatedly became involved in conflicts with other inmates who expressed contempt for those accused of violence against children. Marie, on the contrary, was described as quiet and withdrawn, spending most of her time alone. In June 2011, after a preliminary hearing, the prosecution announced that charges against both suspects would stand. Jordan's attorney stated his client's intention to contest the charges, claiming that Meika's death resulted from an accident and that the charges were built on circumstantial evidence and assumptions. Marie Magoon's representative announced that her client was ready to cooperate with the investigation, hinting at the possibility of a guilty plea in exchange for a reduced sentence. During trial preparation, the defense demanded an independent examination of the cause of death. However, the results of this examination only confirmed the initial conclusions that Meika's injuries were the result of deliberate violence. By fall 2011, the Meika Jordan case had gained national attention. Canadian media covered the investigation details extensively, and public organizations demanded reforms to the child protection system that had failed to prevent this tragedy. The trial of Spencer Jordan and Marie Magoon began on March 5, 2012, in the Supreme Court of Alberta in Calgary, presided over by Justice Richard Anderson. The proceedings attracted significant media and public attention. In his opening statement, prosecutor Thomas Finch painted a picture of systematic abuse of Meika Jordan. This was not a single instance of lost control. This was a campaign of terror inflicted upon a 6-year-old girl for months. Every day in Meika's life was filled with fear, pain, and suffering. The first prosecution witnesses were the paramedics who provided aid to Meika on the day of her death. They described the girl's condition and expressed their professional opinion that her injuries were inconsistent with the alleged fall down the stairs. Medical experts then testified, including Dr. Elizabeth Roberts, who conducted the autopsy. She presented the jury with detailed photographs and descriptions of Meika's injuries, noting that many of them were inflicted with considerable force and could not have resulted from normal childhood play or falls. Dr. Adam Clark, a specialist in pediatric trauma, confirmed that the mesentery damage that ultimately killed Meika required a directed blow to the abdomen with force comparable to a car accident. The next group of witnesses included teachers and school staff who described changes in Meika's behavior and appearance in the months before her death. Sandra Miller, Meika's teacher, tearfully described how the girl became increasingly withdrawn and fearful. She constantly apologized for the most minor things. Once she spilled a little water and became so panicked that I had to spend half an hour calming her down. The school nurse, Mrs. Hope, admitted feeling guilty for not reporting the bruises she had noticed to Child Protective Services. I've asked myself every day since then if I could have prevented this tragedy. Testimony from a key prosecution witness, 11-year-old Emma Thompson, was presented as a video recording to spare the child from having to appear in court personally. In a trembling voice, the girl recounted how Meika had told her about the abuse and showed her bruises. Forensic experts presented evidence obtained during the search of the suspect's home, including Meika's blood-stained clothing and a towel with blood traces, which genetic testing confirmed belonged to Meika. The court paid special attention to Spencer Jordan's internet search history, which showed searches for information about internal injuries and their symptoms in the days before Meika's death. A digital evidence expert confirmed these searches were made from Jordan's personal computer. Spencer Jordan's defense strategy focused on attempting to question the causal relationship between his client's actions and Meika's death. Attorney Richardson brought in an alternative medical expert, Dr. Philip Gray, who suggested that some of Meika's injuries could have resulted from a rare bone disease. However, under cross-examination, Dr. Gray admitted that even such a condition could not explain most of the injuries found on the girl's body. Marie Magoon's attorney chose a different strategy. She presented Marie as a victim of domestic violence, intimidated and controlled by Spencer Jordan. The defense called witnesses who described Jordan as a dominating and controlling partner. A former colleague of Marie's testified that she had noticed bruises on Marie's arm several times, which she explained as accidentally bumping into furniture. Marie Magoon decided to testify in her own defense. She admitted knowing about Spencer's abuse of Meika, but claimed she was afraid to intervene for fear of violence from him. "I didn't know how to protect my daughter. I was afraid that if I tried to leave or tell anyone, he would cause us even greater harm," she said tearfully. Under cross-examination by prosecutor Finch, however, Marie admitted she never sought help, never attempted to contact police or Child Pro. Under cross-examination by prosecutor Finch, however, Marie admitted she never sought help, never attempted to contact police or Child Protection Services, even when Spencer was away from home. She also could not explain why she didn't seek medical attention for Meika when she suffered serious injuries. Spencer Jordan refused to testify in court, exercising his constitutional right not to testify against himself. After a 3-week trial and 2 days of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict on March 29, 2012. Spencer Jordan was found guilty of first-degree murder, and Marie Magoon was found guilty of second-degree murder. Both were also convicted of child abuse. Judge Anderson set the sentencing date for April 11, 2012. Until that time, the convicted remained in custody. Before sentencing, the court heard victim impact statements from those close to Meika. Elizabeth Magoon, the girl's grandmother, delivered an emotional speech. Meika was the light in my life. She was a bright, loving child who wasn't given the chance to grow up. I haven't just lost a granddaughter, but I feel I've lost a daughter who allowed this to happen. A representative from Meika's school spoke about how her death affected teachers and classmates. Children still ask why Meika doesn't come to school anymore. How do you explain to 6-year-old children that the adults who were supposed to care for their friend caused her such pain? On April 11, 2012, Judge Anderson announced the sentences. Spencer Jordan was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 25 years for first-degree murder and an additional 10 years for child abuse, with the terms to be served consecutively. Marie Magoon was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for second-degree murder and 5 years for child abuse, with the terms to be served concurrently. In delivering the sentence, Judge Anderson noted, "This is one of the most heartbreaking cases of child abuse I have had to consider in my career." Meika Jordan was subjected to systematic violence over an extended period, and no one came to her aid. Spencer Jordan demonstrated exceptional cruelty toward a defenseless child, and Marie Magoon, who should have protected her daughter, chose inaction and silent complicity. Attorneys for both convicted individuals announced their intention to file appeals. However, the Alberta Court of Appeal rejected them in December 2013, leaving the sentences unchanged. The tragic death of Meika Jordan led to significant changes in the child protection system in the province of Alberta and across Canada. In September 2012, the government of Alberta initiated a formal inquiry that revealed serious failings in social services, healthcare, and education. A commission led by Justice Margaret Clinton found a lack of effective information sharing between agencies, inadequate training, and ineffective protocols for responding to reports of possible abuse. As a result, a set of reforms called the Meika Act was developed. It included a single information system, mandatory training for professionals, increased funding for child protective services, and mandatory reporting of suspicious injuries. If these measures had existed earlier, perhaps Meika would be alive today, said Alberta Children's Minister Deborah Young. We can't bring Meika back, but we can protect other children from a similar fate. Meika's grandmother, Elizabeth Magoon, established a charitable foundation in her granddaughter's name, and in 2014, the Meika House Center opened in Calgary, a place where children affected by abuse receive comprehensive care. The medical community has also responded by developing new guidelines to identify signs of child abuse. Statistics showed a decrease in severe child abuse cases in the following years. In 2016, a memorial bench was placed in Calgary's Riverside Park with the inscription, "In memory of Meika Jordan, 2005 to 2011. Her short life taught us that protecting children is everyone's responsibility. Today, Spencer Jordan is serving a life sentence at Edmonton Max Prison, and Marie Magoon is at Fraser Valley Women's Correctional Center. Her petition to have her sentence reviewed in 2019 was denied. Meika's younger brother is being raised by his grandmother, who is doing her best to ensure the boy grows up in an atmosphere of love, and tells him about his sister, who loved butterflies, swings, and bright colors. As Judge Clinton concluded, "The system failed Meika Jordan, but her death can save many other children if we learn the right lessons from this tragedy."